Hello, everyone. I'm Carly, and welcome to Read Receipts. In today's off the shelf episode, we are going to be putting the TB in TBD and putting it in TBR because we are going to start building my hopefuls TBR list for 2026. I hope that joke made any sense. As you guys might remember, in our 2025 and 2026 episode where we talked about our goals, I mentioned that my book goal for this year is 41 books, which I'm feeling very good about at this point. I am pretty ahead of schedule. But I still wanted to come up with a bit of a goals list of books that I would like to read this year, mostly because I have a lot of books on my shelves that I haven't gotten to read yet. And so I really want to start tackling that physical TBR. And I'm really trying. I haven't bought a whole lot of books in a while physically that I don't necessarily need to read. So this is my chance to sort of try and get ahead. This is not meant to be a strict sort of expectation that I'm putting on myself. This is more so just a goal to set for myself to try and establish certain books that I want to get out of the way. And this isn't even exclusive to the books that I physically own. I have a couple different goals mixed in there of the books that I want to tackle for this year, but physical books does happen to be the biggest portion of that. So I have selected 21 books that I am going to try and keep track of throughout the year, and we'll see by the end of the year how I do, if I make much or maybe complete progress on this list. I got this idea from a Bookstagram friend of mine, Shelby and her books, and she did this last year. I don't know if she's doing it again this year, but she kind of kept track of a list of hopeful reads that she wanted to have. And so I plan on doing that too. I will update you guys as things go along and we can see how far I get into this. So let's jump in, let's get started, and we're going to go ahead and start with the physical TBR books that I have. So, as I had mentioned in the last episode, one of the things that I had made progress on reading was the Throne of Glass series. So naturally, I want to keep that going, and I'm hoping that I will continue to read Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I will admit, I have not loved this series as much as I thought I would. I know a lot of people really like it, and I do feel like I am really starting to like it. I feel like Heir of Fire does really kick things off, and it really feels like, okay, something is starting. But I do feel like part of my problem has been the fact that I've spaced out a lot of my reads for this series so dramatically. So I'm trying to not get too far behind. Truly, my therapist has started and finished the series before I made it past one book. So I really need to get on it. To give a back of the book summary for you guys in case you're interested, which would be hard because this is book number 5 out of 8. So you're missing a lot of context if you do not know anything about this book. So let's skip ahead a few minutes, spoilers for what this book entails in case you really wanted to not know. Selena Sardothian, don't come at me with how to pronounce any of these things, has embraced her identity as Aelin Galathinius. Okay, good. I was like, I thought there was Ashriver, Queen of Terrasen. But before she can reclaim her throne, she must fight. She will fight for her cousin, a warrior prepared to die for her. She will fight for her friend, a young man trapped in an unspeakable prison. Is that Dorian? Is that Kale? I don't remember what happens to Kale. God, I that was just last month. And she will fight for her people, enslaved to a brutal king and awaiting their lost queen's triumphant return. Everyone Aelin loves has been taken from her. Everything she holds dear is in danger. But she has the heart of a queen, and that heart beats for vengeance. In this 4th book? What? No. Yeah, Assassin's Blade came out by then. Are they calling it... Is this considered 4th because Assassin's Blade's like a 0.5? It's not a complete book? In this 4th book in the number 1 New York Times bestselling Throne of Glass series, no one will escape the Queen's wrath. Ooh, very interesting. I've heard really good things about this book. I feel like there's a lot of action in this one. So I am really excited to get into this, to see where things go, see how all these characters develop. And I'm also really excited because, so I liked Heir of Fire, but the Manon stuff was very difficult to get through because it's like, I don't know who you are and I don't care. And like there were times where I get a little bit better, but it's just like, it's fine. And I know that a lot of people really like her, and that this is sort of like a necessary thing that has to happen is that you're going to read her parts and be like, why are we here? And so I'm excited to understand and be on the know as to why we had to go through that with her. Okay, so this book is 648 pages. So this is going to be a bit of a challenge to get through, but hopefully I will be able to get through it this year because I really need to read more than one Throne of Glass book in a year. So that's book number 1. All right, the next book on this list is kind of to be expected if you listen to our first episode of the year. It is Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. I have so many feelings about this series because I love Phantasma, but I do feel really nervous about how exactly this series is meant to continue if we are not going to be following our main characters from the previous book. This is kind of like it's supposed to be a mix between like a normal fantasy series and almost like how a romance book world might, hop around from side character to side character and develop a full romance storyline with them. That's kind of what is supposed to happen with this series is that we will still sort of build on the fantasy elements, but through the lens of a different character and their love experience. So I don't know. I don't want to. I'm trying not to be like too pessimistic about it, but I'm just kind of sad because I really loved Ophelia and Blackwell. But I am hopeful because Genevieve was a lot of fun to get to know in the book. So, you know, maybe it'll be fine. Maybe I will like this. I'm not super pessimistic about it because I definitely do have enough intrigue about this world to want to read more and to find out more. But it's just kind of a strange idea that I really am like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. So we'll see. I honestly think this is a book that I'm probably going to read earlier in the year because I am so excited about this Phantasmal world. But we'll see where this lands. This one I'm going to place my bets that I will for sure read this year though. All right, next on the docket, we have a book that I honestly don't really remember much about and why exactly I picked it. It is Rules for Ghosting by Shelley J. Shore. I got this at my local book fair because, it's kind of a thing that adult book fairs have been coming back. I think, right, for other people, it's not just where I live. And so this was kind of just one I bought because I don't really actually remember. So I'm going to read the back of the book summary because I truly do not remember anything about this. Ezra Friedman sees ghosts, which made growing up in a funeral home complicated. It might have been easier if his grandfather's ghost didn't give him scathing looks of disapproval as he went through a second HRT-induced puberty, or if he didn't have the pressure of all those relatives, living and dead, judging every choice he makes. It's no wonder that Ezra runs as far away from the family business as humanly possible. I'm also really sorry if you can hear my dog chewing on a bone. She's really going for it. But when the floor of his dream job drops out from under him and his mother uses the family Passover Seder to tell everyone she's running off with the rabbi's wife, Ezra finds himself back in the thick of it, with his parents' marriage imploding and the Friedman family memorial chapel on the brink of financial ruin. Ezra agrees to step into his mother's shoes and help out, which means long days surrounded by ghosts that no one else can see. And then there's his unfortunate crush on Jonathan, the handsome funeral home volunteer, who just happens to live downstairs from Ezra's new apartment. And the appearance of the ghost of Jonathan's gone too soon husband, Ben, who is breaking every spectral rule that Ezra knows. Because Ben can speak, he can move. And as Ezra tries to keep his family together and his heart from getting broken, he realizes that there's more than one way to be haunted and more than one way to become a ghost. What the fuck is this book? I thought this was a romance. I mean, I think for sure there's a romance element to this, but does this not sound like a little bit of horror? I'm still also, I don't know, there's a few elements of this that I'm a little bit confused about. We're just gonna have to see. So yeah, lots of fun representation, gay representation, Jewish representation. I am excited here. I can see now why I bought this book because there's a lot going on and I don't know what it's gonna be. This is interesting. It says, okay, here's a blurb from someone. Part romance, part ghost story, part Jewish family epic. Rules for Ghosting is bitingly funny and deeply moving. Shelley J. Shore is an immense talent. So, okay, it is. To me, it sounded almost a little spooky, and maybe like mystery thrillery. But okay, so interesting. Well, we'll see if I get to this. I'm intrigued. It's a cute cover. Can't go wrong with that. That's honestly, that was probably 50% of the reason why I bought it. All right. We'll see what happens with this one. All right, another romance is coming up, and that is Sarah Adams' Practice Makes Perfect. This is book 2 of, I don't remember exactly what the world is called, but it is a sequel to When in Rome. And I did listen to that book, and I actually did really like it. I will say, surprised that it was a closed door romance book. So I'm assuming that probably all of these books in this universe will be closed door. But to be honest, I bought this book before I ever listened to When in Rome, just because I loved the cover. Pink, flowers, guy with tattoos, say less. That was pretty much all of that there was to that for me. And yeah, now that I've read When in Rome, I did really enjoy it. So I am looking forward to it. And it is a series that I want to continue reading / listening to. But because I did buy the physical book of this, that's why I hadn't really progressed further, because I was like, well, I have the book. I should read it physically. And so I haven't made time to do it through audio instead. So once I do read this one, I probably will continue with the rest of them through Libby. But it sounds like it's going to be a little bit of like a Grumpy Sunshine situation. So that'll be fun. I'm really hopeful that I will get to this one, because this is one that I bought really early on. So I really need to read this one. All right, next we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Again, this is one that I feel like I keep forgetting what exactly it's about, but the cover is so cute. Look at that. So, how could I go wrong? And I kept hearing a lot of good things from like book talk, book Instagram, and people like that, that this was a really big favorite read for a lot of people. So, I've been hopeful that I'll enjoy it. It's supposed to be like kind of a cozy fantasy, but like a little bit shorter. Yeah, it's like a little more than 300 pages. Let's see what we think of this back of the book summary. Cambridge professor Emily Wilde is good at many things. She is the foremost expert on fairies. She is a genius scholar and a meticulous researcher who is writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. But Emily Wilde is not good at people. She could never make small talk at a party, or even get invited to one, and she prefers the company of her books, her dog, Shadow, and the fair folk to other people. So when she arrives in the hardscrabble village of Haraffs, I shit you not, this says Haraffs, Haraffs, Har, Haraffensbeck. Haraffensbeck. Yeah. Emily has no intention of befriending the gruff townsfolk, nor does she care to spend time with another new arrival, her dashing and insufferably handsome academic rival, Wendell Bamblebee. What the fuck are these names? Who manages to charm the townsfolk, muddle Emily's research, and utterly confound and frustrate her. But as Emily gets closer and closer to uncovering the secrets of the Hidden Ones, the most elusive of all fairies, lurking in the shadowy forest outside the town. That's common. Lurking Lurking in the shadowy forest outside the town, she also finds herself on the trail of another mystery. Who is Wendell Bamblebee, and what does he really want? To find the answer, she'll have to unlock the greatest mystery of all, her own heart. I feel like I couldn't even take away a whole lot from reading the back of that, because I was so focused on the weird words in it. But I know that this is a series. I don't know if it's a duology or if there's going to be like multiple books, but it looks really fun. I swear, yeah, okay, they have like little, they really seem to treat this like it is a research book, because they're like little citations here and there. So very cute, very fun. This is another one that I've owned for a really long time. So hopefully we get this one knocked off the list. And who knows, maybe I'll get book 2 for Emily Wilde. And maybe I'll learn how to say their names. Hopefully. Okay, the next one on the list is someone that I like a lot. Glorious Rivals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm a huge stan of Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have a signed one. Oh shoot, it's signed. How fun. I didn't remember that. I'm a huge Jennifer Lynn Barnes fan. That was actually kind of the book series that got me into reading. It was like kind of Harry Potter, but like when I was venturing out into like those were the books that are like obvious everyone tells you to read. What should I read? And I landed on the Inheritance Games, and that was so fun, so easy to read that I just kept going down that path. And so I really enjoy her writing because of how like lighthearted and fun and confusing in some ways it can be as far as the twists and stuff like that. I felt okay about, I can't remember what the first book of this was called. This is like kind of a continuation of the Inheritance Game world, but technically a different series. Not game, the Grandest Game. That was the first one. And I liked it okay. Didn't wasn't super into it, but you know, I'm gonna continue, and I know that she is really excited about the ending of this series. That's actually a book that I believe is meant to come out later this year. So again, should probably read this so that way I can enjoy that whenever it does come out. And yeah, so we got to read this if I'm gonna figure out what this twist is, because she is really excited about it. I actually, okay, so I went to an event where Jennifer Lynn Barnes talked to people. This was when The Same Backwards as Forward, I think, came out as its own separate book. She did a little bit of a tour, and so I got to meet her. I got to, we got to do a Q&A, and I asked her what twist she was most proud of writing or felt particularly like, happy with. And she said that she actually really liked the one that's in this last book for this series. I have to know now where exactly this is going. So I'm really hopeful that this book is going to like amp things up a bit for me. All right, the next one, it feels almost silly because I'm just like, it's been out for a while and I feel like so many people like it to the point where it has its own movie now. It is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And I actually did try to start reading this one a while ago through audiobook, and it was just a little bit too hard for me to stay focused. So I ended up kind of DNFing it for then with a plan to return and read it with my eyes. This is one of the ones where I'm like, okay, I need to read this one. This one's been on the shelf for too long. And I think I will like it. I think once I start, I mean, I love any mysteries, and I feel like they go really fast for me. So I just need to start it. Old people solving crimes. Sure. I think it'll be charming. This next one is a little bit, I feel like, of a cheat because I actually have already started it by the time I am filming this. But when I wrote it, I hadn't started it yet. And it is Dating and Dragons by Christy Boyce. And I have to say, I'm about like halfway through, and I'm really liking this so far. I am a huge fan of her other book, her like premiere book, I believe, debut novel, Dungeons and Drama. And I've talked about that on the podcast as well. Really great read. So this is completely different. This is not a like same universe situation, but I really like her writing. Even though this is a YA book, I feel like she does a good job of writing in a way that is relatable still to teenagers while also not like playing down to them or like dumbing things down for them. I am not a teenager, you might know. So I technically can't speak to like if it's so relatable, but from what I feel like if I was younger, I would have loved these books. Really cute enemies to lovers romance situation. The thing that I really liked about Dungeons and Drama was that it felt very catered to me and especially what my teenage world was like. And again, I feel like there are just some things in here where it's like, wow, this is hitting on like some things that I really personally went through. So kind of crazy. Chrissy Boyce apparently needed to write these books a little over 10 years ago for me to really enjoy them, but I still feel like I'm healing my inner child when I read this stuff. So this is one that is on the list, but I know for a fact I will have read by the end of this year. Last book for my physical TBR list, and also kind of transitioning us into the next category of goal books that I want for this year. It is An Ember in the Ashes by, I should have looked up this name, I'm so fucking stupid for not. Saba Tahir is what I'm going to go with. This is again a book where I have owned this for a long time. I just remember finding a book on, or finding a TikTok of some sort, and it was either a bunch of bookstore employees or library personnel that were going around talking about their like underrated reads or something like that. Agatha said, I need to make noise. I need to make noise to be seen. She's staying so hydrated. So I can't help but be proud. I mean, I haven't had any water all day, I don't think. Okay, cool. And it stuck out to me, so I wanted to go out and buy it. And I just haven't managed to get around to it between various book clubs and stuff. And another reason why this book is on my list is because I also do want to read more books written by BIPOC authors. So this is also kind of works out in my favor as well. So to okay. So to give a back of the book summary, so you guys know what this book is about. Under the I can't tell if this, I feel like surely the R is missing on this, unless I'm wrong. Hold on. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it says under the, and then it looks like it should say Marshall, but it says Ma Teal. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to see if they mention it again in this. I don't see it anywhere else on the back of the book here. I'm just like, is it just this copy, or like, is that actually what it's called? I just want to say the right thing. Oh, goodness. Oh, yes, it is Marshall, I think. Okay, weird. Anyway, under the Marshall Empire, defiance is met with death. Leia and her family do not challenge the Empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Leia's brother is arrested for treason, she is forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she will risk her life to spy for them from within the Empire's greatest military academy. There, Leia meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly, it's most unwilling. He and Leia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and that their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. I don't know for sure, but given the words, it's giving Star Wars. I've never really seen, I mean, I have seen like 2 movies of Star Wars, but I don't know that much about it. Honestly, that might be a con for how I'm gonna like this book. But hopefully it's like the same idea of the story, just in like a more enjoyable context for me personally. I don't like space. Of course I'm not gonna like Star Wars. But yeah, I mean, I can't help but appreciate this is a really cool cover. I am hopeful about this book. This is another one. It doesn't look super big, but 446 it looks like. So, you know, could be more. Not too bad. But yeah, this is another one I've owned for a really long time. Hopefully I read it this year. All right, now for some books that I do not physically own, but do want to read to stay in this sort of category of books written by BIPOC authors that I am interested in. The next book is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. And this is another one where I just feel like I hear about it a lot online, that it is a really good book. So I've been very intrigued, and I just haven't really gotten around to it. I'm probably going to have to buy this one physically. I have a really hard time listening to fantasy books because I feel like when there are words that you don't know, it then makes it really hard to just hear it and understand the context. So I feel like it's easier to read with my eyes. So I've heard really good things about this book, but I also think it's like a little bit underrated. I mean, I say that it has almost 200,000 ratings on Goodreads, but still very interesting. This is a fantasy book, but it is also YA as well. I am very intrigued, and honestly, it has a really high rating, I feel like, for Goodreads. It's a 4.3. That's pretty good. That's quite a few 5 stars that are helping out its ratio. But yeah, I think this will be a good one. The next one in this category is a little bit lighter. Another one that has been on my radar for a while is called It's Elementary by Elise Bryant. And I read a different Elise Bryant book. It was like Reggie and Delilah's Year of something, I feel like. It was a YA romance. Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling. And I liked that one okay. It was pretty good. It was really sweet by the end of it. But this is actually a mystery, cozy mystery type book. So I was really intrigued by it. And what else pissed me off about this is that at one point it was on Libby at my library. And so I was like, oh, perfect. I will need to come back around for this book. And then, unfortunately, it now is not on Libby for me. So that is a main reason why I haven't really gotten around to it, despite it being on my TBR for so long. And this is another one that I'm probably going to have to buy physically in some way. So we'll get to it eventually, but here is the back of the book summary for this. Mavis Miller is not a PTA mom. She has enough on her plate with her feisty 7-year-old daughter, Pearl, an exhausting job at a nonprofit, and the complexities of a multi generational household. So no one is more surprised than Mavis when she caves to Trisha Holbrook, the long reigning, slightly terrifying PTA president, and finds herself in charge of the school's brand new DEI committee. Woof. As one of the few black parents at this California elementary school, Mavis tries to convince herself this is an opportunity for real change. But things go off the rails at the very first meeting when the new principal's plans leave Trisha absolutely furious. Later that night, when Mavis spies Trisha in yellow rubber gloves and booties, lugging cleaning supplies in giant trash bags to her waiting minivan, it's only natural that her mind jumps to somewhere it surely wouldn't in the light of day. Except Principal Smith fails to show up for work the next morning and has been MIA since the meeting. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Mavis, along with the school psychologist with the great forearms, oh my god, a romance is always present. With great forearms, look, it's worth noting. It says in parentheses, that's hilarious. Launches an investigation that will challenge her views on parenting, friendship, and elementary school politics. Brilliantly written, It's Elementary is a quick-witted, escapist romp that perfectly captures just how far parents will go to give their kids the very best, all wrapped in a mystery that will leave you guessing to the very end. So this one sounds really fun. I actually am really excited about this. I've been on a bit of a more so thriller, but mystery thriller kick. So I really wish this was available on Libby for me so that way I could just get to it a lot sooner. But yeah, I personally feel like in terms of the ones that I'm most excited about, that one feels just like fun, exciting, easy. Like this does make me want to like bump it closer to the list of like for sure read by this year. So yeah, I am excited about this one. All right, the last one in this category that also again transitions into another category is Last Night at the Telegraph Club. I found this book out through this cute little cozy game called The Tiny Bookshop. So that is the start of the next category coming up after this is books that I discovered through Tiny Bookshop. And basically, it's a fun little game where you own a tiny bookshop and you just go around selling and you kind of try to stock your stuff based on like where you're at because it's like a traveling one and there's just like little achievements along the way. It's just one of those kind of cute easy games. But what I think is really fun about it is that the books most of the time in the game are based on real life books. Also, okay, another funny thing about it is that they have really funny descriptions in the game for all these books. And so whatever it said, I think I also thought was really funny. And I do remember it mentioning something about lesbians. But yeah, that's how I originally found out about it. Okay, and I forgot to mention the author's name. It is Melinda Lowe. So before I jump into this back to the book summary, I will say it starts with a little quick quote. So in case you're a little bit confused because it feels like we're just jumping in out of nowhere, that is how this is starting because it took me a second to realize exactly what was part of the summary and what was not. That book. Here, I'll put quotation marks when I'm in quotes. That book. It was about two women and they fell in love with each other. And then Lily asked the question that had taken root in her that was even now unfurling its leaves and demanding to be shown the sun. Have you ever heard of such a thing? 17-year-old Lily Hugh can't remember exactly when the question took root, but the answer was in full bloom the moment she and Kathleen Miller walked under the flashing neon sign of a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. America in 1954 is not a safe place for two girls to fall in love, especially not in Chinatown. Red Scare paranoia threatens everyone, including Chinese Americans like Lily. With deportation looming over her father, despite his hard-won citizenship, Lily and Kath risk everything to let their love see the light of day. I will admit, this book feels very different from the type of books that I read. It feels very serious. It's historical fiction. I don't really read a whole lot of historical fiction. I can't even exactly think of Addie LaRue might be the closest to it just because at times it does take place in the past. But one of the reasons why I feel like I will like this book, other than obviously lesbians, is that it reminds me a little bit of A League of Their Own, which the movie itself, it's like there are gay undertones, but like it's technically not meant to be gay. But if you've seen the TV series, it definitely leans a lot more into the fact that a lot of these women were gay and that, there was kind of these specific things going on in the women's league. And so it kind of reminded me of that. And that was part of why I was interested. And to be honest, some of the things around like the historical aspect of it do intrigue me. So I'm trying to branch out a little bit and see how I like it because I feel like there are some things about history that I do like. I do feel like in general, like 19th century or 20th century and beyond interests me. Older history, I'm not super great with. It is about, a time period and like specific topics that I feel like I'm not very familiar with. So I'm really intrigued by it. I'm hopeful that I will like it. It says it's 409 pages, so not that long of a book. And it has a pretty solid rating, a 4.19. Anything in my mind above a 4 has to be pretty good. Oh, and here, yeah, see, I follow someone who rated it 5 stars and wrote, absolutely love this. Granted, I feel like I don't usually align with her on things, but she reads like more serious fiction and I read silly little girl books. I feel pretty good about this one. I think that this is going to be a really intriguing read. I don't know much about like the specifics of the Red Scare and stuff like that. So I think this will be a really interesting lens to learn about some of that stuff. To now get into more of the tiny bookshop reads, the next one is called The Examiner by Janice Hallett. And I will be honest, I don't remember exactly why I wanted to read this. I feel like most of the times when I saw these books on the game, it tended to be books that were mysteries, to be honest, but it could be anything. I gotta be honest, reading that back of the book summary did not really make me super excited, so I'm guessing whatever the summary was on the Tiny Bookshop game made me more interested. But again, I've been in a mystery mood lately, so I'm sure that I will still enjoy this. And I know that this has like a few other books in this sort of universe. So that'll be fun to continue if I like this. All right, next on this list is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. And I honestly, so I knew of this book before I kind of learned more about it through the game, but I really thought it was a V. Schwab book just based on the cover. I thought it was like somehow related to Addie LaRue in some way. And then I read the book summary that was in the game, and it made it sound like a mystery, I think. But I will admit, I reread the back of the book summary for this at some point, and I was a little bit more like, I don't. Carly, is this going to be another situation where this book is not really meant for you? But again, I'm trying to push some boundaries this year, so we'll see. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit. It's so funny. Now that I've read it a second time, I'm like, okay, maybe I will like this. I think it's interesting that it says here under literary awards, it was the Goodreads Choice Award nominee for fantasy. So that's interesting. I wasn't sure if this was like actually a fantasy or if it was more like magical realism, sort of like, again, Addie LaRue-ish. So I wasn't sure, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking at the author's little bio, and it does make it seem like she does do more like fantasy ish stuff. So I don't know. Maybe it will be more true fantasy. All right. The next one is Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Bachman. Um, this is an interesting one because this is again a situation where, based on the description of the game book summary, it made it seem really interesting and fun. But then once I kind of realized that it was a Frederick Bachman book and realizing like the other books that he's written, I was kind of like, huh, am I gonna like this? Because this does seem like more straight fiction. So I don't know, maybe. But even reading the real back of the book summary for it, I was like, I mean, it sounds interesting. I was gonna say, I remember that in the video game, it mentioned that it was a funny book. So I feel like everything's promising about it. It's just truly like I feel bad because it's like I shouldn't be so nervous about reading a book by Frederick Bachman, but I feel like he has kind of a reputation that I, in my mind, feel like I don't know if I'm going to like these books. So we'll see. I'm hopeful. All right, this next category of books are romance books that I have been interested in for a while and want to read. And the first one on this list is The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. I feel like for years now I've seen this out, at bookstores, and every fall I'm like, oh, I need to read that book. It looks so cute, it looks so fun. And because I'm a sucker for a cozy fall romance, and especially if it's Halloween themed. But for some reason, I just keep end up not reading this. And of course, I'm not going to read it out of season. That would be ridiculous. This year, I need to read it. So we'll see by October-ish if I get there. I think another part of the problem too is that you always have to really like plan these things in advance, because on Libby the holds are going to stack up, and then you don't want to like, for it to be too late by the time you get to it. So, you know, it is what it is. But this year we're going to do it. So, 9 years ago, Vivian Jones nursed her broken heart like any young witch would: vodka, weepy music, bubble baths, and a curse on her horrible boyfriend. Sure, Vivi knows she shouldn't use her magic this way, but with only an orchard hayride scented candle on hand, she isn't worried it will cause him anything more than a bad hair day or two. That is until Reese Penhallow, descendant of the town's ancestors, breaker of hearts, and annoyingly just as gorgeous as he always was, returns to Graves Glen, Georgia. What should be a quick trip to recharge the town's ley lines and make an appearance at the annual fall festival turns disastrously wrong. With one calamity after another striking Reese, Vivi realizes her silly little ex-hex may not have been so harmless after all. Suddenly, Graves Glen is under attack from murderous wind-up toys. A pissed off ghost and a talking cat with some interesting things to say. Vivi and Reese have to ignore their off the charts chemistry to work together to save the town and find a way to break the breakup curse before it's too late. What a concept. Murderous wind up toys. Low key, that's kind of my worst nightmare, because I was pretty scared of the toys that Sid made in Toy Story. So that is kind of what comes to mind. But Talking Cat, sign me up. Huge fan of Binks from Hocus Pocus. This sounds really cute and exciting. I really am interested in this. Again, I need to read this one this year. All right, my next romance book that I'm excited to read this year is Every Step She Takes by Allison Cochran. I am a huge fan of Allison Cochran. I know that she kind of has, I don't know if I would say controversial necessarily, but like I can see how like some of her books aren't always the most likable, how they can maybe come off a bit cringy and stuff like that, but I can't help but love the way that she writes and the stories that she tells. So I'm really excited about this one, especially too because this one is about, obviously it's a queer romance, and it's about two women who go on a hike, like, the kind of like big hikes that you go for like several days in another country. Camino, that's what it's called, a Camino. I was really excited about reading this one, especially this year, because I myself am going on a hike later this year in Europe. So it feels only fitting that I should read this maybe as a form of preparation. This is homework since, I'm having a hard time going to the gym as often as I should in this situation. I'm really excited about this. I am kind of surprised myself that I haven't gotten around to this because this was released last year. But honestly, I'm kind of happy that I didn't end up reading it just yet, because I feel like this is going to be a really special and poignant book for me as I prepare for this trek of my own, which sounds kind of silly because obviously it's a fun thing to do, but it's very out of my comfort zone for me. So I think that this will be something that will help with some of the fears and some of the worries that I might have going into it. All right, the next book on the list for romance is, as one might expect, is The Long Game by Rachel Reed. I actually originally had Heated Rivalry on this list, and then I happened to read it and finish it before I recorded. So I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and just change it to The Long Game. So I finished the book, and I watched the first episode of the actual TV show, and I really liked it. I am very interested in to see how it progresses. I just haven't gotten around to finishing it. But with that being said, of course, I also really want to read the next book in the series. I hear that it's meant to be like a 3-book situation. Like, there should be one more book after this one where we get a conclusion to their love story. So, of course, I do need to read this one. I probably will wait until I finish the TV series before I jump into this one. But yeah. And I did also feel like I should give a disclaimer of how I felt about Heated Rivalry. I will admit, I didn't love it to begin with just because there is so much sex. And so I was just like, I feel like we don't have a lot of plot right now. It's just sex, sex, sex. And obviously, like, I understand the reason behind it, and how this builds this sort of like reason why they keep meeting up and how it kind of weaves into their sexuality and stuff like that. But I just wasn't super into it. But then around the 50% mark, when it does get a little bit more serious and gets a little bit more into like them and their relationship and should they get together, I was so in. So now that I have like that feeling by the end of the book, I think it's going to help me enjoy my experience of the TV show. I already kind of felt that way as I was watching. I think they've been doing a really good job of, I think, building more of the romance that I didn't quite feel when I was listening to it. And I will admit, I was listening to it, and so that could have been part of it. I might have been a little bit in and out. But yeah, so I'm really excited to learn more about their situation, learn more about their romance and how it continues after the Heated Rivalry book. All right, next on my list is actually not really a specific book. It is just that I want to read another Ashley posted. Once again, I didn't look it up. Book. So I honestly feel very like I could take any of them. I don't really have a specific preference on which one I read, but I do know that I want to read more because I love 7 Year Slip so much that I feel like there has to be even like a slice of that same goodness in her other books. I did happen to, long before I knew who she was, add to my interested list on Libby Among the Beasts and Briars, which came out in 2020. So a couple years before 7 Year Slip ever came out. So I might do that one since that is one that I did happen to already put on my list without knowing who it was attached to. But yeah, between that one, Sounds Like Love, The Dead Romantics, any of them really I could take. So it's just kind of a matter of picking. At some point, I plan on reading more of her work. The last two books, the category they belong to are books that have not been released yet. And so the first one is Finley Donovan Crosses the Line by El Casamano. And I'm a fan of Finley Donovan. What can I say? Especially if you have not listened to the audiobooks for these books, they are so good. Like, truly, in my mind, that is top tier of audiobook narrators. It really does feel like there are different people talking at different points, but it's all just one person. Like, the characterization that goes into each person is so good and so fluid. I am obsessed, and I genuinely think it does add a lot to the experience. So, highly recommend both the books and also specifically the audiobooks. With that being said, I did see that El Casamano is coming to my town on her book tour, so I might once again buy a physical book to go see her and then listen to it on audiobook because that is my preferred method of how I enjoy these books. But I won't go into reading the back of the book summary for it. If you're a Finley Donovan fan, you know what you're kind of getting into. And to be honest, I don't remember what we're getting into, but I will probably reread some of the last couple of books to get my head in the game once it does come out. In my mind, it's a must. You have to just read Finley Donovan. It is my comfort book of just like, I love these characters and I don't care what they do. I'm just there for the ride every time. And then the last book that I 100% for a fact know that I will read this year as long as it does come out this year is Burn of the Everflame by Penn Cole. The Kindred's Curse saga has been such a huge fantasy book for me in the last year. I read all of the books last year and I was so in. As I mentioned previously, Luther has skyrocketed to the top of my book boyfriends list. I think he kind of is like the perfect package of all the little things I like about a lot of other people in these books. So, love that. And I just think that the trajectory of the story has been so fun. Diem as a character has grown so much over the course of these books. And obviously, if you know the cliffhanger for where Heat left us, it is insane. And I am scared for our girl. So I need to know. I need to know what happens as soon as possible. I saw a thing that said that the book was going to come out in like the summer of this year, so I really am hoping that is the case, even though I feel like there has not been an official release date yet. But I I'm feeling hopeful that it will release this year. The sooner the better for me personally. This is one where as soon as it drops, I will be there. I have to know what happens, and I need to know how this goes. There's so much in this world that still like lives in my mind rent free that I just need to know. And the fact that this is the end of the series is so crazy to me. And I think this might be the first fantasy series where I will have read it from start to definitive end, because otherwise it would have been like Throne of Glass. Like, that is a completed series. And Akatar is not a completed series, kind of. Like, I know that, 1 through 3 is like its own story, but World is continuing. So I'm going to count that as not finished. And then obviously Empyrean series is not finished. So all those like major ones are still TBD on their books. So this is going to be crazy for me. I'm kind of scared, but I'm also really excited to like know so much, to know the answers and conclusions to all these things. So yeah, I'm really excited. It is probably my most anticipated read of the year, and couldn't recommend it enough. Honestly, I have a feeling that I'm going to be so into this world that this is likely going to become a book club episode for the pod, but we'll see. I know that this is kind of a popular book to cover. Fantasy Fangirls have covered already the rest of the book series, and will likely be covering the last book as well. But, when I have thoughts, I got to talk about it. So we're probably going to do it, despite the fact that it's going to be covered by a lot of people. And that concludes my hopefuls list for 2026. I know that was kind of wordy. I probably didn't have to read all the back of the book summaries, but I hope that there were some books that you didn't know about that maybe you can add to your TBR for either this year or just for the future, generally speaking. In 2 weeks from now, we will be having our next book club episode, which will be about Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. So that will be a lot of fun. I did finish the book and I really loved it. I think I gave it like 4.5 to 5 stars. I think I like rounded up on Goodreads, but 4.5 is where it actually landed. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. Highly recommend. If you have not read it yet, you got 2 weeks. And I will see you at the next episode. If you stuck around to the end, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Leave in the comments any books that you are looking forward to this year, and I will keep you all updated in the future on how these books go for me and how we do on this TBR. I have to read 41 books. Here's 21. We'll see how many of those make it on to the 41 number. So anyway, thanks for listening to the latest episode of our hit podcast, Read Receipts. All of the content that you hear in this podcast is curated, recorded, and edited by us truly, with special thanks to the authors of the books that we cover and Pixabay for the music that we play. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen. And for more of our content in between shows, you can find us at the Read Receipts Pod on Instagram and TikTok. We read all of your comments and love all your likes, so please, please, please follow along. Until our next read, bye!